Okay, it looks like we are live. There we go. It's crazy. I am in for a good night or a good day today, day 3 of the decision table pathway. And I hope whoever gets to watch this, and that is you, that you get so much out of today. Let's have a look at what we've done over the last 2 days. Firstly, the question on day 1 was, what if you could ask better questions? How would that build out, or what would you do if you were asking better questions? Would that change how you're building out your business, your company, your organization, when you're working with your team? Would this change the relationship you have, the culture you're building, whatever it is, right? Would that be different if you asked better questions? Day 2 was, what if? What if you could navigate the uncomfortable conversation? We talked a lot about, literally, those moments none of us want to be having a conversation around. None of us want to be in that moment and at that table, yet we know if we are to have a new approach to life, to leadership, to whatever you're building out, it needs to be done differently. And so there's a new conversation that's got to be at the table. And sometimes we've got to get past some of that old conversation or the things that have stopped you from moving forward and navigate a new conversation. So we talked about that. We are not talking about that today. In fact, what we are talking about is literally our question of the day. Do you want to know what it is? Do you want to know what today's question is? All right. I will not hold off any longer. I'm pretty pumped for today. I think I've been sick the last couple of days or the last few days, and I'm bouncing back slowly, but I'm in here and I'm full of life today. I just went for a quick dip and in the pool, and a crazy ride in a crazy car to the beach. So I am ready to bring the goods to the table right now. Are you ready? Are you ready to sort of go, how can you look at the way that you're making decisions and building out the culture that you're building out? And what would it be if you asked different questions? What if you could navigate that different conversation? What could that look like? What would it need to look like? And today's question, here it is. Today's question is this. Let's see. What if you, yes, you could. Oh, that's not the same. I'm doing the same one. Let me get to the right one. Okay. Helps if you're on the right page. Okay. What if your decisions, okay, hopefully you can read my writing, I know what today is. Okay. What if your decisions always moved you closer to, kind of looks like an R, right? Closer to the results? Hey, if you're on this live, I'd love you to interact. If you've got questions, if you've got thoughts, if you know someone that could really benefit from what I'm saying, share it with people. And if you're on the replay, then just say #replay and tell me what you get from this. Tell me what questions come up when you're thinking about this. Excuse me. And, let me know what you're learning from this little pathway, the decision table pathway. Okay, so today's question is, what if your decisions always moved you closer to the results you want? Seems a funny question to ask sometimes, right? Like, don't we always make decisions? Like, ask yourself, do you always make decisions that move you closer to where you want to go? Okay, let's be honest now. Come on, seriously. If you're not thinking about it, do you make decisions and you go, why did I make that decision? Like, what was I thinking when I made that decision? Oh my gosh, like seriously, I can't believe that I made that decision, at that moment. So what if all your decisions that you made moved you closer to the result you want? Would you know that every decision you make is important and so you make it priority? Maybe. Would you think that if you make a decision and it's moving you towards the results you are actually wanting, then maybe even if it is a tricky conversation that you need to navigate, that the importance of being able to do that is, becomes really important and you want to do it. Here's the thing that's really interesting is it always comes back to your decisions and what is actually the result that you want. Let's have a look at that. We're going to have some fun around this because what if your decisions always moved you closer to the result that you want? Okay, so think about it. We've talked about this before, about like the result, right? That you want, the outcome you want. In many cases, the solution you want. Okay, remember, we've always got to start at our starting point. Okay, that's your now. This is where the future, this is where we're moving to. For many, the future becomes maybe tomorrow, maybe the next week, if you're lucky. But hey, remember on day one, we talked about this. Many don't do New Year's resolutions because many don't do them. Literally do them, right? Like I think it gets to March and they've totally forgotten what it was they were going to do. So future is very much in the near future. What I'm trying to talk about, because we like to play big in my world, okay? We like to kind of pioneer. We like to be on the cutting edge. And for that to happen, oops, you can't even see what I'm writing there. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Let me write it again. So we like to play, can you see that? Yes, play big. We like to pioneer. And we like to be cutting edge. But for that to happen, there has to be what I call the new approach. All right? We got to get rid of the old approach because the old approach has got us to where we are now, but it's not going to move us to where we need to go going forward, right? And if it was going to, then all those problems across the world we see, they would be all fixed up, right? So I don't know about you, but I know that we're not necessarily heading in that direction if we're not careful. And I think if I go back to this is our starting point. This is the future. And like I said before, most people go for the near future, but we like to play big here. We like to pioneer and we like to be cutting edge. Then we have got to start thinking, if not just thinking, we've got to definitely not just think, but do the new approach. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I get to talk about a lot of my work. And I want to keep sharing with you because when we can get from our starting point, your starting point where you are right now, then you can get to that result that you want, the outcome that you want, or the solution that you really want. How do you keep moving towards here with every decision that you're making? Firstly, and we're going to talk about this, by the way, on the 7th day. Excuse me, on the 7th day, there's going to be an amazing workshop. And honestly, if only one person turns up to this workshop, I'm good with that because I'm excited about sharing what I've got to share. And I'm excited because it is pioneering, it is to play big, and it's not for the soft-hearted. And it's definitely not those that want to keep doing it the same old way. But if you want to step up as a leader, then you need to be there. You need to book yourself in. You need to book your team in. You need to book anyone in. Anyone in your world that needs to be there, you need to make sure they're there. Okay, anyway, the link is going to be in these wherever this is showing, it's going to be in there as well. So check out that later. We'll talk more on that as we continue. But what I love about this is when you know your starting point, when you know where to start, and you know the result you want, the solution you want, then what we need to do is make sure we're making shifts towards it. That's you. That every decision you make, this is your decisions, that you're making it, and it gives you the stepping stones to actually getting the result and outcome you want. There's a few ways to do that, and we will go into a huge depth on how to make better decisions and how you can look at when you're not making the right decisions and when you are making the decisions. I talk about reckless decisions. I talk about the speed of decisions that you make. I've got a great framework, and you can have a look at it and see the power of the decisions but that's not what we're talking about today. And the other side of it is this piece. I talk about the non-valid pathway. I talk about the valid pathway, and then I talk about the velocity pathway. And what I love about the velocity pathway is that it gives you the speed dial, the way to be playing at a different level, the way to pioneer, and the way to be playing and making bigger decisions and I always say it's this, and some people go, oh, I don't want to just make the right one and the fast one. Okay, that's great. And I'm good if you don't want to. Like, seriously, if that's what you want to do, if you just want to make some decisions that are really good decisions, then you know how to do that, then good on you. But in my world, what I have learned is that growth is absolutely accelerated, increased in your world and what you're doing when you're able to make the fast decisions and the right decisions when you do that at a speed, because you have the capacity not just to make the decisions, but to action on them as well. But anyway, I'm going ahead of myself right now, and I'll talk more about that as the days go by and literally on that workshop I mentioned earlier. Okay, so what do we need to do to make sure we shift? And I think this is really important. I think it's really easy to shift responsibility to when you're making decisions going, oh, that was because of Joe down the road. If Joe had only done what he had said he would do, then I would have made a better decision. Oh, look, I would make a great decision, or I'll make a great decision once you've decided what you're doing. Here's the thing, any of those kind of answers means that you rely on what someone else is doing. That takes the control out of what you can do, what you need to do, and you making a decision and moving on it. What if you could do that better yourself? And this is where I think that it's really important. There's kind of three spaces in which to play in as a leader. We talked about this before. We've talked about the whole emerging leaders. And just go back to this, and I will talk about this more later, but not now. This is the level of leadership for the new approach, right? It's the influences. Whoops. And then it's the legacy. And I think that anytime you enter the new approach, you can enter into the emerging leaders. Emerging, remember, is not just that you're just starting off in leadership. It means that you're curious to maybe do it a different way. And then you head into this and then this way. And, what are the footprints? What are the footprints here? Okay, this is where you're curious. So curiosity, I guess. This is like the footprints. And this is where you start using your platform. And ultimately we want to give voice to the human race, knowing that you're going to add value to the human race going forward. That moves us forward from problem to solution. What I love about this and what I think is really important is that you're able, as a leader, to keep moving up those different levels. And I definitely can help you to identify where you're at and what is needed at those. That's the easy part. And this is what I was just starting to talk about before, is that there's this responsibility that you have to make better decisions, to make decisions that are going to be the right ones and the fast ones. And this is because there's this place in which you need to start, and that is you. Whoops, this is not going to fit, so I'm going to change it. Okay, so this is you as an individual. Okay, and it's looking at you as an individual, as a leader. What does that look like? How can you do that more effectively? And what if you could access the secret advantage that I know about, which is the human intelligence? Honestly, it is a game changer to disrupting patterns and being able to make smarter decisions. But we'll talk more of that later as well. And then it's once you've done that and taken responsibility of what it looks like for you to be an individual as a leader, then it's as a collective. And then the third piece is then the global. And what is cool about this is that when you take ownership of what you believe and stand in, then you can join with your collective, the people that are in your sphere of influence, right? And you can help bring much change in there. And what I love about that then is this, that as you start making, every decision that you're making has an impact, and it's an impact that you start making a dent really on in your community and your clients, your business, your organization. This actually does start making a footprint, right, on the global space. And that's really important because, I think that it takes just one of us being willing to be the 1%, right? Like I always talk about this and anything that you see of mine. So if you're willing to be the 1%, then we actually, and you look at this, right? Remember how I said result, okay? Result, outcome, solution. Remember how I was saying that? Okay. So if we're willing to be part of the result, the outcome, the solution that is needed, and here's 1%, here's another 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%, and everyone was doing their 1%, what are we doing? We're shifting that dial forward to the outcome that we actually want. And where does that start? By you taking ownership of how you turn up as a leader. What are you standing for? What vision do you have, not just for your life, but for the collective and then across the globe? How's that having an effect? It's that simple. It's funny because I talk a lot about the global landscape and leaders across the globe, and whether it's in the political space, whether it's in the economic space, in the business world, right to creatives, innovators, you name it, the scientists, the medical. It doesn't matter. This is the same pattern. If everyone chose, that's you. Excuse me. Still trying to get over my sickness I've had in the last few days. So anyway, if you chose to be the 1%, I'm definitely choosing to be the 1%, then we will shift that dial forward. We're going to talk about that later, actually. Whoops. In one of the pathway things. Let me just pick up my, there we go. Got it. Here was the culprit. It dropped. Okay. We will talk about the 1% a lot more later, but just know that if you were to be the 1%, Mary down the road was to be the 1%, George down the road 1%, and all the people that you touch in your world were willing to be the 1%, we would definitely shift that dial forward from problem to solution. And I love that. So it has to come back to you. And this is the thing. Whoops, we've run out. We're going to do it white right now, just to be different, just to annoy you. No. Whoops, don't you love it when the phone rings at the same time? Okay, so do the 1%, be the 1%. But let's go back, because it comes right back to you as an individual. What are you willing to do, to be? And the best way that I know to identify some of these things that are important as an individual is this. And let's have a look at it. And I call it the health cycle of your ecosystem. I talk a lot about ecosystem. I don't ever build out a business. I build out an ecosystem. Or every single one of us has an ecosystem. And when you focus on building out the ecosystem, it means there aren't things that you leave, or when you're making decisions, it's not just about one thing and it doesn't affect the other thing. Everything must have effortless flow throughout all of your ecosystem. I know for some of you that's like, what is she talking about? But it's a really cool thing when you get to talk about ecosystems. So let's have a little look at what is priority. If you think about you, okay, that's you right there as an individual, okay? What are some of the areas that should be and need to be 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. Okay. That I think is really important when you look at the health cycle of your ecosystem. And I break down this a lot more in when we look at your ecosystem. But number one, it's your personal. Here's the thing. I don't know about you, but I know that if I'm going through difficult things in my relationship, whether it's with my partner, whether it's with my children, it has an effect on my other things in my life. It has an effect on my health. It has an effect on some of my decisions. I get really can't make decisions because I'm stressing about something in my personal life. So that's where it's become so important that you have a look at what I call, as an individual, the health, right? Let's say that again, the health of your ecosystem. Okay, so one area is personal, yeah? That's a really important area for you to have a, let's highlight that. There we go. So there's your personal. All right. Another area is your, let's put it over here, professional, okay? So, whoops, that's not a good color. If you're writing, let's go back to a different, where is it? Whoop, there. Okay, so the next one is professional. If you're struggling with having to turn up at your workplace every day and it's stressing you out, putting pressure on you, that's gonna have pressure when you get back home. You're gonna be tired. If you've got children, you're not gonna have time to put into the children because you've just got no energy left. There's all the different things that, if you've got things going on in your professional, it is going to have an effect on the rest of your ecosystem. Okay, so another piece that's really important to look at when you're assessing and diagnosing where the health of your ecosystem is at is looking at your, I love it when it does that, physical, yeah? And, anyone that's sort of been in my world, that I spend a lot of time really focusing in on my health. And for anyone that's known my backstory, 14 plus years ago now, I remember at the 1 year mark that I got told I would never get out of a wheelchair. Sorry, sweetheart, the condition that you have in your body, because I had a condition in my body at that time that I'd lost the whole use of my left-hand side from the hip down to the toe. And the rest of the condition had gone throughout my body. And they said to me, sorry, sweetheart, you've just got it so badly, you're never, ever going to get out of the wheelchair. And I remember getting told that massively. And when I went home, and I literally call it one of those crossroads, those moments in which you've got a decision to make. And it's a tough decision. And I look at the opportunity, the possibilities that I have lay ahead of me. And I think on my personal side, right? And I was like, well, this seems too hard for me to do it. But I remember thinking and telling my kids as they were growing up that they literally could be anything they wanted to be, that they could do whatever they're meant to do, and that they could be, like the world is their oyster. You've just got to choose to do it. And I thought, in that moment, if I just go, this is too hard, this is, impossible. Yeah, they're right. I could just stay in that wheelchair. That I was not being the role model to my children to prove that I could do and be anything. And so personally, if I chose to stay in that wheelchair, if I chose to go, this is what I've been dealt with, live with pain 24/7, because by the way, I got another condition in there as well. So I got double whammy, right? And if I listened to that, I would have gone, my personal life would not be at the stage it is now. Now, of course, I had to work on my physical, but I also wouldn't be doing what I do in the workspace because I wouldn't be able to sit at a desk. I wouldn't have the energy that I have to continually show up. I wouldn't be able to travel the world like I used to do before something hit the world, and I'm hoping to get back on that and travel more again. If I didn't, or if I'm not healthy, and that would have had an effect on my professional. Do you know what else it has an effect on? And this is another marker in which to know the health of your ecosystem, and that is your spiritual. Oops. And I know that's kind of weird, and for many you go, oh, that's a little woo-woo. I'm actually not meaning like in the way of, who do you serve, whatever. Like, it's, what is your purpose? What is the whole reason you're here? So in my case, I am a God-given child. And so I believe I have a bigger purpose way beyond me. And actually it motivates me to get up, to bring this, to do this, and to push on even when it gets really tough, because many have known my story or have heard parts of it. And honestly, to be totally honest, that if I didn't choose, that there was something bigger for me to live for, that I had got through so many of these horrible situations. If I hadn't have got to the other side of it, I wouldn't have believed that I had such a big purpose. But I figure that I didn't die on those moments when I could have died. And that is no over-exaggeration. I remember, and I've never released the book, and I will probably one day, but it's the opening chapter of my book. And it talks about the fact that I have one less breath, and because there was a hand to my neck and they were killing me. And so that moment of knowing that maybe your vision, your mission is bigger than you, that there is a purpose to why you are here. And you've got to know what that vision is. You've got to know what that purpose is. And for me, I believe it's beyond even me as a human. And anyway, that's kind of weird and wonderful and awesome. But I tell you, if I didn't have that, and I didn't feel like my strength wasn't just strength that I have, but it's because I've got access to a bigger strength than me, then the health of my ecosystem wouldn't be where it is today. And so it's interesting, isn't it? And I think that that's a really important thing for all of us as an individual to know. And then there's the last piece. And the last piece is this. And we're going to, excuse me. Sorry for coughing. I can't help it. I've been sick, as many of you know. And so, that's what the coughing is for. Okay, and so the last one, and I actually, as I've got older, I've loved this even more, but I think it's really important, this one. And it's your, what did I actually, okay, intellectual, yeah, it is. It's your intellectual intelligence. I think it's actually meant to be intelligence, which is why I said I love it. Okay, yeah, there we go. And I do think intelligence, intellectual, whatever it is, it's one of those, right? Bear with me, go with the flow. But I do think that is a really important, it's one of the reasons I talk about, being able to exercise the muscle of human intelligence, because I believe when you are able to make smarter decisions, and this is why this whole thing is on the decision table pathway around the decisions you're making. And today's decision was, what if you could make decisions that always move you closer to the result or the solution or the outcome that you really want. And I think that first it comes down to you as an individual knowing the health of your ecosystem. So these are the markers, these are the indicators of your ecosystem, and make it really important. And these honestly will move you towards, remember this bit here, take you from individual to collective to then the global space. And I find it fascinating. Maybe you don't. Maybe this is just like, wow, what's she talking about? But I tell you, this is just the beginning of some of the amazing decisions we can make at a table that will make a new approach to how we turn up as a leader, how more effective you can be as a human, adding value to the culture that you're building out within what you're building, but then the greater landscape of how does that fit into leaving footprints for the generations to come. And I do think that that's really important. So if this is just like, what the heck is Kerry Marie talking about? Man, this has just been so intense. This is so full on. I thank you for even taking a moment, a glimpse in here to have a look at this. If this is something that you've gone, hey, this is like really cool. Like I've never really looked at the health of my ecosystem and how that could help me to be more effective as a leader, then maybe this is something that you want to know more about. And if so, then at the end of the 7 days, on the 7th day, actually, I am running a workshop, and it's called, let me have a look, because I'm dyslexic. And here it is here. I hope you can see that on the screen. You should be able to, right? And it's called Blaze a Trail, Shift the Dial Forward. And it's something that it's not like literally what I said before. Like if this is just too intense, this is like, what the heck is she going on about? I get that. I'm not for everybody. But what I want you to think about is, if you're a pioneer, someone that's willing to do it different, someone who's curious, we've talked about the different levels of the new approach to leadership, who's curious to sort of do it in a different way, to think a bit different, who's willing to go, hey, I don't look like everyone else. I am wanting to sort of blaze a trail and shift the dial forward to your next level, to take your leadership to a new level, then the workshop I run on the 7th day is actually something that I would say you need to be there, your team need to be there, anyone in your world needs to be there. And I'm going to talk a lot around gaining time back, learning how we can take some of these things that I'm talking about here and you can become in what you're doing, because you've now got to go, okay, now that I know this, how does this actually work for me? So we really work on that to make sure that you know what you're needing and how to do that more effectively. And then it's like increasing wins at the table. Optimizing your growth. Sorry. One of the reasons we look at the health of your ecosystem is because, like I said earlier, remember when I was told at the 1 year mark, I'm never going to get out of that wheelchair. If I hadn't have dealt with all that physical and made sure that my head is right and that making good decisions, that my vision is heading towards getting me out of a wheelchair, moving to that next level, wanting to, make sure that I've got the right things and that I'm personally invested in being able to move it forward, I never would have got out that wheelchair. I'm so grateful, every morning when I'm now taking our little new puppies out for a walk, I never take it for granted that I'm walking, that not only am I out of a wheelchair, out of crutches, off sticks, I don't even have anything. At times I'm sprinting with the puppies, and that moment that even though I'm gasping for air and it's hard on my body, I'm so, so grateful for the fact that I was able to optimize my growth, and that has helped my ecosystem accelerate to grow and to, really make a bigger impact as well. So, one of the things that we'll be talking about on that workshop is the return on decisions. I think, the thing that I think why I love making the right decisions fast is because I love the fact that every time I make a decision, I know I'm going to have a return on that decision. What if you could? What if you knew that every time that you were making a decision, you would be getting a return on your decision? All right, we've done lots here, and I'm just grateful you've been here. Hey, if this has been something, make sure you're at the workshop. Make sure you're sharing this if you think there's someone else that could really do with what we talked about today. So today's question was, let's just go back. Let's recap for just 1 second. I'm not going to go on this any longer than we need to. What if, and we're going to finish on this, what if your decisions always moved you closer to the results you want? I think that would be a good day. All right. Hope you've had a great day, and I can't wait to share tomorrow's day on the decision table pathway. Thank you.